In this video, I'm going to show how I repaired the LCD backlight for a Nord Stage 2 EX. You can see my keyboard comes on and the LCD works, but there's just no backlight. The first thing I did is look at the original Nord Stage 88 service manual to see where all these screws are you have to remove before you can actually take the top off. Actually, the first thing I did was look for a replacement LCD screen for this keyboard, but since this one's about 10 years old now, they're really just not making them and I couldn't find it anywhere. But this keyboard still slaps, so there's really no reason for me to get a new one. Once you get all those out, you can lift the lid and you'll see two ribbon cables connecting the top to the main base of the keyboard. And just lift the retaining clip edges of those so you can free those and remove the entire top. Just flip the top over and the board that is connected to the display is on the left in this shot. Once you remove all of these screws, this board will be free, but it is actually connected to the mod wheel and pitch bend stick assembly with a couple wires. And those wires are soldered into the board, so it's just easier to remove the whole assembly. The first thing I'm doing is just testing with 3 volts to see if this backlight will light up. Maybe it just wasn't getting power from some disconnect on the board somewhere, but after doing that, even when applying the voltage directly, there's no backlight, so next step is to remove the LCD. Sorry about this camera angle. So now the LCD's free, but there's still a ribbon cable that needs to be removed. So just pry that out with a spudger tool. Now that it's free, I'm just testing one last time with 3 volts to make sure that the backlight is indeed dead. There are 6 metal retaining clips on this metal bezel that holds the LCD to its board, and you'll have to turn those 90 degrees so that they line up with the slots and you can push that bezel through and remove it. And once the bezel's off, you can just lift this dot matrix display or LCD right off of the backlight. Now I'm just measuring the size of this backlight. Until this, I wasn't even really sure what I was going to do or what I needed to order. But after measuring it with calipers, I'm looking up trying to find a new backlight. And then I remembered I had this little Arduino kit. So just on a whim, got that out and tested it with 3 volts and got the backlight to light up. So I was hoping that this backlight was the same size, and it was the same width, but it was a little long. But all these are is just an LED on one end with a long diffuser piece of plastic, so I'm trimming down the plastic here to match the length of the Nords. But if you are looking to find a new backlight, it's 19 millimeters by 58 millimeters. I'm just stripping some of the plastic off the ends of these small wires on the LCD board so that I can solder this new diffuser LED into it.
You gonna ride that?
Now that the backlight is soldered in, I'm just placing the LCD over that. And just make sure all these contacts are clean because there's a lot of them and they just work by flushly contacting another piece of copper on the other side. So double check that. Then you can put the bezel back on and turn all those tabs again to fasten that in. Now I'm putting it back on the board, and the first thing I'm doing is getting that ribbon cable reattached before I fasten those screws into the nylock nuts. There's a lot of little indicator lights and plastic pieces that go over them and knobs, and just make sure everything's lined up before you try to put this thing back together. Now I'm just reattaching those two main ribbon cables. They seem pretty sturdy, so I don't think you have to be too careful with this. About halfway after putting all the screws back in, I'm thinking I should have plugged it in and turned it on before doing that. Moment of truth. And it works.